The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation by Mo Xiang Tong Xiu. An unofficial reading by Emm Wilde. Book 3. Chapter 11. Supreme Courage. Part 1. Yunmeng was a region replete with lakes, so it was only natural that the residents of the most prominent cultivation clan in the area, the Zhang clan of Yunmeng, lay amongst the waters. That residence was known as Lotus Pier. If one were to depart Lotus Pier and row along with the current, it wouldn't take long to arrive at a large lake with the surfeit of lotuses, known as Lotus Lake. Pink blossoms with broad jade-green leaves rose from the depths of the lake, whose waters spanned hundreds of kilometers. When a breeze brushed past, the flowers swayed and quivered like they were nodding, giving a lovely scenery and sort of charming innocence. Unlike other immortal residences, Lotus Pier was not far removed from the secular world. Ordinary folks were barred from ever setting foot on the grand estates of other cultivation clans, but outside Lotus Pier's main entrance were often a variety of small vendors doing roaring business in lotus pods, water chestnuts, and all sorts of pastries. Local children with snotty noses also sneaked into the drill grounds to secretly spy on the disciples' sword training. Even when they were inevitably discovered, they weren't reprimanded. In fact, they were sometimes allowed to play with the Zhang clan disciples. When Wei Wuxian was young, he often shot kites by the shores of Lotus Lake. Jiancheng kept a keen eye on his own kite, but kept peeking at Wei Wuxian's as well. Wei Wuxian's kite was already high in the sky, but he showed no signs of intending to reel it back in. He shaded his eyes with his right hand and grinned up at it, seeming to think that his kite still wasn't flown far enough. Seeing how his own kite was about to fly out of the range where he was certain he'd be able to shoot it down, Jiancheng clenched his teeth and knocked an arrow on his bow. He released the bowstring, and the white-feathered arrow shot forth with a whizzing sound. His kite was painted to resemble a strange, one-eyed monster. When the arrow hit its mark, the kite fell to the earth. Jiancheng was clearly pleased, and his expression relaxed. "Bullseye!" he exclaimed, then quickly asked, "Yours has already flown far. Can you still manage to hit it?" "Place your bets," Wei Wuxian said. Only then did he knock an arrow. He focused and aimed, drawing the bowstring to its full span. With a snap of his fingers, he let the arrow fly. Bullseye. Jiancheng's brow wrinkled again, and he let out a snort. The group of boys packed up their bows and ran over to pick up their kites and tally their results. The one whose kite had fallen the nearest to the starting point was ranked in last place. Liu Shidi, the sixth eldest of the Shidi, earned this spot every time. He was teased with good-natured laughter, as always, but he was very thick-skinned and didn't care in the slightest. Wei Wuxian's kite had landed the furthest away. Right behind him, in second place, was Jiancheng's. The two of them, feeling lazy that day, decided against running all the way out to pick up their kites. The group of boys charged into the 9-turn bridge, then floated about on the surface of the water like a blooming lotus, and were horsing around, leaping and flying off the walls and roofs, when two lithe, graceful young women made an appearance. The women were both dressed as combat-ready handmaids, and each wielded a short sword. The taller of the two stopped the boys and presented the kite and arrow she held. "To whom do these belong?" she coldly asked. The boys all silently cursed at the sight of the two women. Wei Wuxian stroked his chin and stepped forward. "They're mine." The other handmaid humphed. "Well, aren't you honest?" The two handmaids each moved to one side. Behind them was a woman dressed in purple and bearing a sword. The woman was fair of skin and fine in appearance, with noble eyes. But there was a sharpness to her features, and her lips were always curled into the ghost of a sneer. It was the look of a born cynic, and thus very similar to Jiancheng. Her waist was slim, and her purple robes flowed gracefully as she moved. Her face and the right hand resting on the hilt of her sword were both as cold as jade, and on that hand's index finger was a ring adorned with a purple crystal. Jiancheng smiled at the sight of her. Mom. Conversely, the rest of the boys greeted her with great respect. Madame Yu. Madame Yu was indeed Jiancheng's mother, Yu Ziyuan. She was, of course, also Jiang Fengmein's wife, and the two of them had once been cultivating peers. Although she should have been known as Madame Jiang, everyone always called her Madame Yu. There was much speculation that Madame Yu disliked her husband's surname due to her strong personality, but the couple never commented on the gossip either way. Madame Yu came from the renowned Yu clan of Meishan and was the third oldest of her siblings. Thus, she was also known as San Nianzai, third girl. In the cultivation world, she was known as the Purple Spider. Just speaking that name aloud would strike fear into the hearts of many. Even in her youth, she possessed a cold personality and disliked fraternizing with others, so interactions with her were rarely pleasant. Even after marrying Jiang Fengmein, she didn't enjoy being cooped up in Lotus Pier, but spent most of her time venturing out into the wider world on night hunts. Moreover, her living quarters at Lotus Pier were separated from those of Jiang Fengmein. Her quarters formed a private area that housed herself and the relatives that she had brought with her from the Yu clan. The two young women with her now were named Jinzhu and Yinzhu, both handmaids and trusted aides who never left her side. Madame Yu sent a look at Jiancheng. Horsing around again? Come, let me have a look at you. Jiancheng scurried over, and Madame Yu squeezed his arm with her slender fingers before giving him a sound slap on the shoulder. Not a bit of progress in your cultivation. You're almost 17 and still acting like an ignorant child, running around with this lot, doing mischief all day. Do you think that you're the same as them? Hell knows what gutters they'll be crawling into in the future, but you'll be the leader of the Jiang clan. Jiancheng staggered from the force of her slap. He hung his head, not daring to argue back. Wei Wuxian needed no confirmation to know that she was passive-aggressively insulting him again. One of his shidi secretly stuck his tongue out at him, and Wei Wuxian arched his eyebrow in response. Wei Ying, what are you up to now? As always, Wei Wuxian stepped forward, and Madame Yu continued to scold him. Acting like this again. Even if you don't strive for any kind of personal improvement, don't drag Jiancheng into your nonsense and lead him astray. I don't strive for improvement? Wei Wuxian looked astonished. I thought I was the most advanced student on the Lotus Pier. Young people never liked to be scolded. They just had to talk back. Madame Yu looked murderous, but Jiancheng quickly intervened. Wei Wuxian, shut up. He turned to Madame Yu. It's not that we want to laze around Lotus Pier shooting kites, but no one can go anywhere right now, can they? The Wen clan claimed all the night hunt districts of their own, and they draw their own boundaries. Even if I wanted to go night hunting, there's nowhere to go. Didn't you and Father tell us to stay home instead of going in search of prey and provoking the Wen clan's wrath? Madame Yu snorted. It seems that you're going to have to go whether you like it or not this time. Jiancheng looked puzzled, but Madame Yu had already dropped the subject and stalked off down the long bridge with her head held high. The two handmaidens shot death glares at Wei Wuxian before following. When evening came, they learned what she had meant. The Wen clan of Qishan had sent an envoy with a message. It proclaimed that, due to the other clan's incompetence, the talent and potential of new disciples was being wasted. Therefore, the Wen clan demanded that every one of these offending clans send at least 20 sect disciples to Qishan within 3 days. These disciples would be personally educated by specialists selected by the Wen clan. Jiancheng was flabbergasted. The Wens actually said that? That's completely shameless. They think they're the sun in the sky shining down over all the other clans, Wei Wuxian drawled. It's not like this is the first time the Wens have acted brazenly. They've been brandishing their size and power ever since last year, and they forbade other clans from going on night hunts. Look at how much prey and land they've stolen. From the head of the hall, Jiang Fengmein chastised him. Mind your words. Eat your food. Only 5 of them were seated in the massive hall, each with a small square table laden with dishes in front of them. Wei Wuxian looked down. He had only just moved his chopsticks when he felt a tug on his sleeve, and, turning, saw Jiang Yinli pass him a small plate. There were a number of lotus seeds upon it, the nuts plump and white, fresh and full, and freshly peeled just for him. "Thanks, Gigi," Wei Wuxian whispered. Jiang Yanli responded with a smile, which added more vibrant color to her pleasantly unassuming appearance. "What food?" Yu Ziyuan spat coldly. "Who knows if they'll be given anything to eat once they arrive at Qishen? Why not let them starve now so they'll be used to it?" The Wen clan of Qishen's demand was one that they could not refuse. There were countless examples of the fate that awaited any clan audacious enough to defy their orders. Such clans were declared guilty of any number of arbitrary criminal charges, like rebellion or menace to the cultivation world, and then openly, justifiably eradicated. "Why so distressed?" Jiang Fengmin asked calmly. "No matter what the future holds, today's meal still stands to be eaten." Madame Yu tried to hold herself back, but could not. She smacked her palm on the table. "Why so distressed? Because to be distressed is to have sense. How can you be so indifferent at a time like this? Did you not hear what the Wen envoy said? Their lowly maid dared to act all high and mighty in front of me. The 20 disciples being sent must include representatives of the core family. Do you know what that means? Ah Chang and Ali, one of them must be included. Why are they being sent? For education? Who are the Wens to dictate how other sects educate their own juniors? Sending the children plays right into the Wens' hands. They'd be taken hostages of them." "Don't be mad, Mom," Jiancheng tried to interrupt. "Just me alone is enough." "Of course you're the one going," Madame Yu scolded him. "As if your Gigi can go. Look at her, still peeling lotus seeds so cheerfully. Ali, stop peeling. Who are you peeling them for? You're a lady, not someone's servant." Wei Wuxian heard that pointed word, servant, but didn't care. He gobbled up all the lotus seeds on his plate in one go, mouth filled with refreshing sweetness as he chewed. However, Jiang Fengmin looked up. "San Yang." "Am I mistaken?" Madame Yu snapped. "You don't like the sound of that word, servant? Let me ask you, Jiang Fengmin, do you plan on having him go?" "It depends on what he wants," Jiang Fengmin replied. "He can go if he wants to." Wei Wuxian raised his hand. "I'll go." "How lovely," Madame Yu snorted. "Go if you want to, but you won't be forced if you don't. Why is Ah Cheng the only one who has to go? Raising someone else's son like this? Sect Leader Zheng, what a good, generous man you are." There was resentment in her heart, and all she wanted was to set it free, heedless of whether her venting had either sense or reason. The others remained quiet, letting her blow off steam. "San Yanji, you're tired," said Jiang Fengmin. "Why don't you go back and rest?" Jiancheng, still sitting on his own spot, looked up at her. "Mom." Madame Yu rose to her feet and sneered. "What are you calling me for? Trying to be like your father and tell me to quiet down? You're an idiot. I've already told you, you'll never be able to compare to the one sitting next to you. You can't compete with him when it comes to cultivation, to night hunts, not even to shooting a kite. It can't be helped. It's not your fault your mom can't compare to someone else's mom, after all. If you're no match for him, that's just how it is. Your mom is simply indignant on your behalf. How many times have I had to tell you not to hang around with him, and yet you speak up for him? When did I give birth to a son like you?" She stalked out, leaving Jiancheng sitting there with his complexion turning a myriad of colors. Jiang Yanli quietly placed a plate of peeled lotus seeds on his table. They sat there for a while before Jiang Fengmin broke the silence. "I will select another 18 disciples tonight. You will all depart tomorrow." Jiancheng nodded, unsure if he should say anything more. He never knew how to talk to his father. Wei Wuxian, on the other hand, found it the most natural thing in the world. He finished his soup and asked, "Jiang Shushu, is there nothing you want to give us?" Jiang Fengmin responded with a smile. "I gave them to you long ago, the swords on your sides, and our motto in your hearts." "Oh," Wei Wuxian said, Attempt the impossible, right? That motto doesn't mean that you need to keep causing mischief when you already know that you're getting in trouble for it, Jiancheng immediately warned him. With that, the mood in the dining hall finally livened up. Prior to their departure the following day, Jiang Fengming briefed them on necessary matters and then added one more thing. The disciples of Jian clan of Yongmeng are not so weak that they cannot withstand a single storm in the outside world. On the other hand, Jiang Yanli followed them well down the road to see them off to her satisfaction, all while stuffing everyone's arms full of all sorts of dried foods for fear that they wouldn't be able to fill their stomachs in Qingshan. The 20 youths departed Lotus Pier heavily laden with food and arrived at the education office designated by Qingshan before the deadline. A great number of disciples from prominent clans had arrived there, all of them juniors. Of the 100 present, many were familiar faces. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and 7 or 8, conversing in hushed tones. None of them seemed to be in good moods, so they must have all been summoned in not-so-polite ways. After looking around, Wei Wuxian commented, "So people from Guzu came too, as expected." For some reason, the boys sent by the Lan clan of Guzu all looked rather haggard. Lan Wangji looked especially pale, but still wore the same frosty expression that kept most people at arm's length. With his sword Bichen strapped on his back, he stood there all alone with no one else around him. Wei Wuxian wanted to go over and greet him, but Jiancheng warned, "Don't start anything," so he had to abandon the endeavor. Suddenly, there was someone ahead, loudly issuing orders for the disciples to assemble in proper formation before a tall platform. Several Wen sect disciples walked over to bellow orders. "Quiet, all of you, no talking." The one standing on the stage wasn't much older than them. He appeared to be about 18 or 19, and clearly considered himself quite important and superior to everyone else present. His face fell on the very outer borders of the realm of handsome, and the airs that he put on were as greasy as his hair. This youth was Wen Qiao, the youngest son of the Wen clan's leader. Wen Qiao loved flaunting himself and took every opportunity to posture before the clans, so his face was not unfamiliar to anyone present. 2 people stood on either side of him. At his left was an ostentatious young woman with a lithe and graceful figure, large eyes, arched brows, and lips as red as fire. The only blemish on her perfection was the black mole that sprouted above her lips, in such an awful spot that it made one constantly itch to pick it off. At his right was a man who looked to be about 20 or 30, with a tall, broad build. Indifference shaded his expression, and the air around him was somber and cold. Wen Qiao stood high up the slope, looking smugly down at the crowd as he waved his hands. "As of now, you will turn in your swords." Uproar erupted amongst the gathered disciples. "A sword never leaves a cultivator's side," someone protested. "Why would we surrender ours?" "Who said that?" Wen Qiao demanded. "Which clan are you from? Step forward." The one who had spoken held his tongue out of fear. Quiet returned once more below the platform, and Wen Qiao was pleased. "It's precisely because there are still some of you who don't know etiquette, don't understand subordination, don't comprehend the hierarchy among juniors from prominent clans. You are flawed at the root, and so I have resolved to educate you. Already you are so ignorant and fearless. If I don't correct this now, it will result in people vainly challenging the authority of the Wen clan and trying to climb above our heads." Everyone knew full well that he demanded their swords with ill intentions. But the Wen clan of Qingshan was like the noonday sun, and every other family was teetering on thin ice. No one dared resist them in the slightest. If they should displease the Wen clan in any way, they feared that they would be convicted of some crime that would implicate their entire clan. They had no choice but to submit and endure it. Jiancheng held Wei Wuxian down. "Why are you restraining me?" Wei Wuxian asked in a low whisper. Jiancheng snorted. "In case you start something." "You think too much," Wei Wuxian said. "That guy's so slimy it makes me sick, but if I wanted to punch him, I wouldn't pick a time like this to bring our family's grief. Relax." You want to throw a sack over him and beat him up again? Jiancheng asked. That won't work. You see that man next to Wen Chao? Yeah, Wei Wuxian replied. He's got high cultivation, but he looks aged, so he must have started training later in life. That man is named Wen Zhuliu, Jiancheng explained. Also known as the core-melting hand. He's Wen Chao's personal attendant, and here specifically to protect him. Don't provoke him. Core-melting hand, Wei Wuxian wondered. That's right, Jiancheng said. Those hands of his are frightening, and he aids those evildoers. In the past, he helped when they had been conversing in low whispers while facing forward, so when they saw the Wen clan servant who was collecting swords approach them, they immediately stopped talking. Wei Wuxian effortlessly untied the sword hung at his waist and handed it in. While doing so, he stole a glance over at the Lan clan of Guzu. He'd thought that Lan Wangji would refuse to turn his sword in for sure, but to his surprise, while Lan Wangji's expression remained frighteningly frosty, he nonetheless unfastened his sword. Madame Yu's previous mockery had proved to be a prophecy. While they received education in Jishen, their fare was meager, to say the least. All the food Jiang Yanli had stuffed into their arms was confiscated. As none of the young disciples had yet mastered Anidia, this made their lives quite difficult. The so-called education provided by the Wen clan of Jishen consisted of distributing a book entitled Quintessential Records and Quotable Characters of the Illustrious Wen, which was crammed full of heroic tales and quotes from the Wen clan leaders and renowned cultivators throughout history. Everyone was given a copy and told to memorize the text well enough to recite sight unseen, keeping every single word in mind at all times. Every day, Wen Chao would stand above the crowd, give a speech, and then demand that they all cheer for him. Every word they spoke and every action they took had to be inspired by his example. During night hunts, he would command the disciples to scout ahead, clear the path for him, and draw the attention of nefarious creatures. The others would fight with everything they had until Wen Chao popped up at the last second to land the final, easy strike against the Yao beasts that they'd essentially already defeated. Then he'd cut off the Yao's head and essentially boast about how he had single-handedly won the trophy for himself. Everyone who rubbed him the wrong way would be singled out and yelled at in front of everyone, scolded so hard that they were brought lower than livestock. At the grand symposium hosted by the Wen clan of Jishen a year ago, Wen Chao had entered the arena alongside Wei Wuxian and others during the archery event. He was wholeheartedly convinced he'd win first place and thought it only natural that everyone would concede to him. But of his opening 3 shots, 1 was on target, 1 fell short, and 1 hit a paper doll by mistake. He should have exited the arena immediately, but obstinately refused, and no one had the nerve to tell him off. Once the final tally came out, the top 4 were Wei Wuxian, Lan Xichen, Jin Zizhuan, and Lan Wangji. And if Lan Wangji hadn't left the event early, he would have achieved an even better score. Wen Chao, humiliated, developed a bitter hatred for those 4 in particular. Lan Xichen hadn't been able to make it to this little educational retreat. But Wen Chao unrelentingly harassed the other 3, giving them tongue lashings every day in public, quite the demonstration of his might. Jin Zizhuan was the most aggrieved by the whole situation. He was a much-cherished child growing up, adored by his parents, and had never suffered such humiliation before. If it hadn't been for the other Jin clan disciples holding him back, and if Wen Zhuliu wasn't such a deterrent, Jin Zizhuan would have charged up to Wen Chao and snuffed out his life even at the cost of his own. On the other hand, Lan Wangji looked like his heart was as calm as still water. He had assumed a state of complete indifference, as if his soul had left his body. Wei Wuxian, meanwhile, had spent years being tongue-lashed by Madame Yu at Lotus Pier. Each time he found himself descending the platform, he would laugh it off without a single care for Wen Chao's pathetic posturing. Bright and early one fateful morning, the juniors were once again driven out of bed by the Wen servants and herded like livestock towards the location of the latest night hunt, Mount Muqi. The deeper they ventured into the mountain, the thicker the branches grew above their heads, and the deeper the shade grew beneath their feet. There was no sound aside from the whispering of leaves and their own footsteps. Swallowed by the dense silence, even birdsong or the chirping of insects seemed unusually loud. After a long time, the group happened upon a small, gurgling stream. Scattered maple leaves were carried along by the current. The sound of the water and the color of the maple leaves subtly lifted the oppressive atmosphere. Faint, merry laughter could be heard from up ahead. As they walked, Wei Wuxian and Jiancheng grumbled and cursed the Wen dogs under their breath in every way they could think of. With a careless glance behind him, Wei Wuxian saw a flash of white robes. It was Lan Wangji. He had fallen a little behind the group, walking at a fairly slow pace. Wei Wuxian had attempted to draw him into conversation many times over the past few days, wanting to catch up. But alas, every time Lan Wangji saw him, he would turn away. Furthermore, Jiancheng had warned him time and time again not to tease Lan Wangji for no reason. Now that the other boy was so nearby, Wei Wuxian couldn't help but unconsciously examine him. Suddenly, he noticed Lan Wangji's gait was strange. He was clearly trying to walk normally, but Wei Wuxian could tell that he set his right leg more gingerly on the ground than his left, like he couldn't put any weight on it. At the sight of this, Wei Wuxian slowed his pace and deliberately fell behind to walk next to Lan Wangji. "What's wrong with your leg?" Lan Wangji's eyes remained fixed ahead. "Nothing." "We're pretty well acquainted, aren't we?" Wei Wuxian wheedled. "So cold, not sparing me a look at all. Is your leg really all right?" "We are not well acquainted," Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian spun around and walked backwards, quite determined that Lan Wangji look at his face. "Don't act tough if something is wrong. Is your leg injured? Broken? When did it happen?" He was about to ask if Lan Wangji wanted him to carry him when something fragrant caught his nose. Wei Wuxian craned his neck to look at the path ahead, and his eyes lit up. Seeing him shut up so suddenly, Lan Wangji looked over as well, following his gaze to spot a group of around 5 girls walking together. The one in the middle was dressed in a light scarlet outer robe with a thin overcoat. The gauzy fabric fluttered like a gentle breeze and contoured her strikingly lovely figure, and that figure was what caught Wei Wuxian's eye. "Main, that perfume sachet of yours is amazing. Once you took it out, the bugs stopped pestering us in an instant," one of the girls chuckled. "The scent is nice, too. It clears the mind." When the girl that they had called Main spoke, her voice was so soft and tender and sweet that it matched the meaning of her name. "The sachets are filled with chopped medicinal herbs. There are many uses for them. I've got more sachets here. Do any of you want one?" Wei Wuxian glided over like a gust of evil wind. Main, save one for me too." That girl jumped in surprise at the stranger unexpectedly barging into their conversation. She looked back, revealing a pretty face to match her figure. With a slightly furrowed brow, she demanded, "Who are you? Why are you also calling me Main?" Wei Wuxian smiled. "I heard them call you Main, so I thought that was your name. What, is it not?" Lan Wangji looked on with cold indifference. Jiancheng noticed Wei Wuxian getting up to his usual nonsense again and rolled his eyes dramatically. Main blushed and exclaimed, "You can't call me that." "Why not?" Wei Wuxian asked. "Why don't we do this, then? Tell me your real name, and I won't call you Main. How's that?" "Why do I have to tell you my name first just because you asked?" Main countered. "Why don't you give me your name before asking others for theirs?" "Oh, my name's easy. Listen closely now." Wei Wuxian beckoned her close. "My name is Yandao." Main repeated the name twice in her head. She couldn't recall any young masters from prominent clans with that name, but judging from his bearing and manners, this young man didn't appear to be a nobody. Puzzled, she stared at the teasing smile on Wei Wuxian's lips. Suddenly, Lan Wangji's cold, quiet commentary came from behind them. "Trifling with diction." Then it hit her. Wei Wuxian was teasing her. It was an allusion to the verse from the historical wartime poem, Main Si Yandao. Unendingly do I long for my faraway husband. She stomped her foot angrily. Who's longing for you? Shameless. The group of girls fell into giggling laughter. Wei Wuxian, you are so shameless. I've never seen such a pest before. Let me tell you, her name is... Main pulled them away. Go, none of you are allowed to tell him. As they left, Wei Wuxian called after their retreating backs. It's okay if you leave, but give me a perfume sachet. Come on. Are you ignoring me? Not gonna give me one? If you won't, then I'm gonna keep asking people what your name is. Someone will be willing to tell me. A perfume sachet came flying at him before he finished, hitting him squarely in the chest. With a yelp, Wei Wuxian pretended the projectile had pierced his very heart. Whirling the sachet around his finger by its ties, he walked back to Lan Wangji's side, laughing as he did. At the sight of Lan Wangji's increasingly sullen expression, he asked, What? Why are you looking at me like that again? Where were we? Oh, yeah, how about I give you a piggyback? Lan Wangji regarded him quietly. Do you behave so flippantly towards everyone? Wei Wuxian thought for a moment. Seems that way. Lan Wangji lowered his eyes. It was a moment before he declared, Irreverent. The word was spat through gritted teeth and tinged with an inexplicable bitterness. Lan Wangji sped up his pace and arduously walked onward, apparently unable to even spare Wei Wuxian an angry look. Seeing him straining himself again, Wei Wuxian hastily excused himself. Okay, fine. You don't have to run off. I'll go, all right? True to his word, he went and caught up with Jiancheng in a few quick strides. But Jiancheng wasn't pleased with him either. He rebuked him savagely. You're so frivolous. You're not Longzhong. Why are you copying his commentary? Wei Wuxian asked. That scowl of his today is the worst it's ever been. What's going on with his leg? Jiancheng was surly. You don't have time to worry about him. Just mind yourself. Who knows what that idiot Wen Chao is up to, driving us up the mountain to find some cave? I hope whatever he's scheming doesn't go down like the last fight against that tree Yao, making us surround the thing like a meat shield. Of course he looks upset, a sect disciple next to them said in a hushed whisper. The cloud recesses was set ablaze last month. You guys haven't heard yet, I assume. Wei Wuxian was shocked. Set ablaze? Jiancheng had heard a lot of similar news over the past few days, so he wasn't as surprised. The Wens did it? You could say that, the sect disciple said. Or you could also say the Lans did it themselves. The eldest son of the Wen clan, Wen Chu, went to Guzu and declared the Lan family head guilty of some crime, then forced the Lans to burn down their own residence. They said that they were allowing the family to put things in order and be reborn from the flames. Over half of the cloud recesses was reduced to ash, not to mention the surrounding forest. A centuries-old immortal realm destroyed just like that. The Lan clan family head has severe injuries too. We're not even sure if he's alive. The sect disciple trailed off with a sigh. Does that have anything to do with Lan Zhan's leg? Wei Wuxian asked. Of course it does, the sect disciple replied. The first place Wen Zhu ordered them to burn was the library pavilion. He said anyone who disobeyed would be taught a valuable lesson, but Lan Wangji refused to do it. So Wen Zhu's subordinates surrounded him and broke one of his legs. They didn't even give him the chance to heal up before dragging him all the way out here. Who knows why they're tormenting us like this? Wei Wuxian thought back carefully. Over the past few days, when he wasn't enduring Wen Chao's public verbal abuse, Lan Wangji had indeed rarely walked around. He was always either standing still or sitting down, and never spoke a word. It was only natural for someone who valued his composure so highly to hide his injury from others. Jiancheng, noticing Wei Wuxian seemed to be drifting in Lan Wangji's direction again, quickly yanked him to a stop. What's with you? You still want to mess with him? You're really asking for it. I'm not going to mess with him, Wei Wuxian said. Look at his leg. The injury must have gotten worse after all the running around over the last few days. It's only noticeable now because it's gone past the point that he can hide it. If this keeps going, that leg is done for. I'm going to carry him. Jianzheng tightened his grip on Wei Wuxian. You're not even that close to him. Do you seriously not see how much he hates you? And carry him? He probably doesn't want you anywhere near him. That's okay. I don't hate him, Wei Wuxian declared. I'll snatch him up before he sees it coming. What's he gonna do, choke me to death while I've got him on my back? We can't even take care of ourselves right now. We can't afford to get involved with other people's business, Jianzheng warned. It doesn't concern us. Firstly, it does concern us, Wei Wuxian said. Secondly, someone needs to worry. While the two were quietly arguing, one of the Wen servants came over to yell at them. You two, don't keep whispering to each other. Watch yourselves. Behind the servants was a beautiful, dainty girl. Her name was Wang Lingjiao, and she was one of Wen Qiao's personal attendants. No need to specify exactly what kind of personal attendant. Everyone knew. She had been a handmaid in the service of Wen Qiao's wife, but thanks to her good looks had climbed into her master's bed after tossing him a few flirtatious glances. With this inadvertent aid from his mistress, the servant thus rose to a higher position. Her elevation also saw a new name rise among the cultivation clans, the Wang clan of Yingshan. Hardly a noteworthy name, and yet, thanks to its masters, one that could not be ignored. Her spiritual power was too weak for her to wield a spiritual sword, so she instead carried a long, thick branding iron in her hand. Every Wen servant carried one of these irons. They could brand an excruciatingly painful mark on a victim's body without needing heat to be applied first. Wang Lingjiao brandished the rod imperiously as she scolded them. Jiao Wenganzi told the lot of you to search for the cave. What are you whispering about? Such was the current state of the world. They were taking orders from a smug, arrogant handmaid who had fumbled her way to the top by climbing the ladder made by her mistress's bedsheets. The two of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just then, someone shouted, Found it! Wang Lingjiao immediately lost interest in the two of them and darted over to see. She cried out in happiness when she laid eyes on what had been discovered. Wenganzi, we found it! We found the entrance! It was a well-concealed underground cave, hidden at the foot of an old banyan tree, wide enough for 3 grown men to encircle it with their arms. They hadn't found it sooner because the cave's entrance had been very small, less than 2 square meters wide, and the tree's bulky roots and vines had formed a robust webbing that all but blocked the hole. There were also withered branches and fallen leaves layered on top, including a blanket of dirt and rocks. It was unusually well hidden. Once the rotted branches and soil had been dug away and the roots chopped clear, the eerie, pitch-black interior yawned open before them. The mouth of the cave led deep underground. Blasts of shiveringly cold air whirled from within, and when someone threw a rock in to test, there was not a sound. It was as if it had sunk into the sea. Wen Qiao was overjoyed. This must be it. Go down, all of you, quick. Jin Zizhuan had already had enough of this. You brought us here saying that it was a night hunt for Yao beasts, he spat tensely. So may I ask what kind of Yao beast this is exactly? Inform us now so we can respond to it properly and avoid the last hunt's chaos. Inform you now? Wen Qiao parroted, sounding offended. He straightened up and pointed at Jin Zizhuan, then at himself. How many times do I need to tell you before you remember? Make no mistake, you are nothing more than my subordinate cultivators. I am the one giving commands. I don't need anyone else to suggest what I do. Only I dictate operations to mobilize troops, and only I can subdue and defeat Yao beasts. He put particular emphasis on each repetitive I. His loud, cocky tone was at once loathsome and ridiculous. Did you not hear what Wen Ganzi said? Wang Lingjiao scolded. Now go down. Jin Zizhuan stood at the very front of the group. Suppressing his anger, he flipped back the hem of his robes, caught a stout-looking vine, and hopped into the bottomless hole without a shred of hesitation. For once, Wei Wuxian could truly empathize with him. Whatever nefarious creatures might reside inside the cave, It would be far more pleasant to deal with them than Wen Zhao and his coterie. If Jin Zizhuan had to look at that pair of adulterers even one more second, he really just might carry out his suicidal murder fantasies. One by one, the rest of the group followed after Jin Zizhuan and entered the underground cave. With their swords confiscated, the forcibly assembled team of disciples had no choice but to climb down slowly. The tree's vines grew along the dirt wall and were thick as an infant's wrist, making them quite sturdy. Wei Wuxian clung onto a vine and descended slowly, all while mentally calculating just how deep the hole might be. They slid for over 100 meters before their feet touched solid ground. Wen Chao called after them a few times from above. It was only after he had repeatedly been assured that it was safe that he mounted his sword and leisurely flew down, hugging Wan Lingjiao around her waist. The Wen disciples and servants landed shortly after him. "Hopefully he's not hunting anything too hard to handle," Zhensheng muttered under his breath. "I wonder if there are any other exits to this place. If whatever Yao beast or other fiend is in here goes berserk, those vines are long enough that they might snap. It won't be easy to escape." The others were all thinking the same thing. Worry seized their minds, and they unconsciously looked up at the bright opening of the cave. It looked very small from down here. Wen Chao dismounted his sword and barked at them. "Do you need me to teach you what to do? Go!" The group of youths were thus driven into the depths of the cave. Since they were scouting ahead, Wen Chao deigned to have his servants give them a few torches. The domed ceiling of the underground cave was high and empty, untouched by the weak light. Wei Wuxian paid close attention to the way sound echoed around them. It seemed that the deeper they went, the more cavernous the reverberation sounded. They were probably at least 300 meters underground. The scouts at the front were on high alert, their torches raised high. An unknown amount of time passed before they came upon a fathomless lake as vast as any that they could have found above ground. The waters were dark and tranquil, and rocky inlets of various sizes pockmarked the surface. There was no other path leading out, but even though they were now at a dead end, their night hunt prey hadn't shown itself. They still didn't even know what it was. Heavy clouds of uncertainty bloomed over everyone's heads, leaving them tense and on edge. Irritated that the anticipated Yao beast hadn't been found, Wen Chao swore a couple times. Then an idea hit him. "String someone up overhead. Lure the thing out by spilling their blood." Most Yao beasts had a ravenous lust for blood. The strong, bloody smell of human bait hanging limply overhead would definitely lure out their target. Wang Lingjiao acknowledged his order and immediately pointed at a particular girl. "Her, then." It was the girl who had been giving out perfume sachets in the road, Main. Her face went blank when she was named. The choice appeared to be offhanded, but Wang Lingjiao had been planning and waiting for such an opportunity and such a time. The prominent clans had mostly sent boys, so there were very few young girls here. Wen Chao couldn't help but pay extra attention to them, and specifically to Main, who was pretty. She had already been forced to suffer the pinching and prodding of Wen Chao's slimy hands, powerless to do anything but swallow the humiliation. Wang Lingjiao had witnessed all of this and loathed the sight. The realization that she had been chosen as bait really hit her then. Main snapped out of it and staggered backwards with a terrified expression. When Wen Chao saw who Wang Lingjiao had picked, regret washed over him. He hadn't had the chance to truly taste her yet. "That one? Why don't we choose someone else?" "But why?" Wang Lingjiao whined, sounding aggrieved. "I want this one. Do you not want her to be picked?" The moment she played the coquette, Wen Chao went weak and giddy with lurid excitement. He took another look at Main's clothing. She was definitely not a proper clan junior, but a sect disciple at most. She was more than suitable to be bait. Even if she died, no clan worthy of note would raise a fuss. "What are you saying? What's there to complain about?" Jiao Jiao gets to call the shots. She can do whatever her little self wants. Mei Mei knew that once she had been strung up, there was almost no chance she'd come back down alive. Panicked, she fled about the cave, but no matter where she tried to flee, the people who were there scattered away. Wei Wuxian had barely moved a muscle, but was immediately held down firmly by Jiancheng. Suddenly, Mei Mei noticed that there were 2 disciples who had not backed away from her, but remained steadfastly still. She quickly ran to hide behind them, shaking in fear. The 2 disciples were Jin Zizhuan and Lan Wanji. The Wen servants trying to seize Mei Mei saw the 2 of them clearly didn't intend to move. "Step aside," they barked. Lan Wanji's only response was silence and indifference. Noticing the situation turning sour, Wen Xiao warned them. "What are you 2 standing there for? Do you not understand human words? Or are you trying to save a damsel in distress?" Jin Zizhuan raised his eyebrows. "Are you done? Was it not enough to have others be your meat shield? Now you have to have living people be your bloody bait?" Wei Wuxian was slightly shocked. That Jin Zizhuan actually has some guts. Wen Xiao pointed at them accusingly. "Is this a revolt? I'm warning you, I've tolerated you for far too long. Take action immediately. Truss that girl up. Otherwise, no one your clan sent along with you will be coming home." Jin Zizhuan sneered and didn't move a muscle. Lan Wanji also acted as if he had heard nothing, as tranquil as if he had been in a meditative state. However, there was a sect disciple from the Lan clan of Guzu who had been trembling as he listened to Wen Xiao's threats. Unable to endure any longer, he charged over and seized Mei Mei to bind her. Before he could succeed, Lan Wanji's brow furrowed sharply, and he struck out with his palm. That single strike sent the boy hurtling away. Although Lan Wanji did not speak a single word, the look he gave the sect disciple projected immense power in itself, and its meaning was more than obvious. "It is truly a disgrace to the Lan clan of Guzu to have a sect disciple such as you." The sect disciple's shoulders were shaking as he slowly backed away, powerless to meet any of the eyes staring at him from all around. Wei Wuxian whispered to Jiancheng, "Geez, Lan Lan's temper has been getting him into trouble." Jiancheng clenched his fists. There was probably no way of staying out of the situation at this point. It was delusional to hope that no blood would be shed. Wen Xiao flew into a rage. "This is mutiny! Kill them both!" A number of Wen sect disciples drew their shining swords and charged at Lan Wanji and Jin Zizhuan. All the while, core-melting hand Wan Zhuliu stood motionless behind Wen Xiao with his hands clasped behind his back, as if he thought he didn't need to participate. Which was essentially true. The fight was a few against many, and the 2 boys had no weapons. They were at a disadvantage in the first place, and terribly exhausted by endless toil to boot. Furthermore, Lan Wanji was injured. They wouldn't last long. Wen Xiao's mood lifted as he watched his subordinates fight the pair. He clicked his tongue. "Who do they think they are, defying me? People like that deserve death." "Yeah," a voice laughed cheekily. "Those who abuse their family's influence in order to oppress others and boldly commit crimes all deserve death. And not just death, beheading. With their heads put on display to be cursed by the millions, serving as a warning for future generations." Upon hearing this, Wen Xiao whirled around. "What did you say?" "Do you need me to repeat myself?" Wei Wuxian looked astounded. "All right then. Those who abuse their family's influence in order to oppress others and boldly commit crimes all deserve death. And not just death, beheading. With their heads put on display to be cursed by the millions, serving as a warning for future generations. Did you catch it that time?" Wen Zhuliu shot Wei Wuxian a pensive look. Wen Xiao, on the other hand, was simply outraged. "What a load of crap! You dare utter such treacherous, arrogant nonsense!" Wei Wuxian's lips curled upwards, and he snorted before bursting into insolent laughter. Under the shocked and dumbfounded gaze of everyone around, he leaned on Jiancheng's shoulder for support as he laughed so hard he couldn't catch his breath. "Oh, load of crap! Treacherous! I think that describes you perfectly. Wen Chao, do you know who said those words? You must not, so let me help you out. That was straight from the mouth of your clan's founder, the hugely renowned cultivator Wen Mao. Denouncing your ancestor's famous quote as a load of crap. I can't believe it. Treacherous, what a roast. So good. That book that had been forced on them, quintessential records and quotable characters of the illustrious Wen, treated even the most mundane small talk of the Wen family with boasted and ponderous importance, and dissected the deeper meanings of each word at length. Never mind memorizing the text well enough to recite from memory. Just flipping through a couple of pages had left Wei Wuxian disgusted. But he'd found that particular quote from Wen Mao incredibly ironic, so he remembered it clearly. Wen Chao's face was awash in various colors as Wei Wuxian continued to speak. Oh, right. What was the exact sentence for the crime of insulting a famous Wen cultivator? What was the punishment again? To be killed without mercy, I think? Very good. You can go die now. Wen Chao couldn't hold back any longer. He lunged, brandishing his sword, and in doing so, left the range of Wen Zhuliu's protection. Wen Zhuliu had only ever been on the defensive, guarding against others' attacks on Wen Chao. He'd never expected Wen Chao to actually make a move on his own, and now that he had, the attack was too sudden for him to respond in time. Wei Wuxian, meanwhile, had purposefully incensed Wen Chao in order to make him lose control. The smile on his lips never faded as he snatched Wen Chao's sword with his lightning-fast hands. In one fell swoop, he countered the attack and restrained Wen Chao. With Wen Chao in his grip, Wei Wuxian put some distance between himself and Wen Zhuliu by taking a hop, skip, and a jump on one of the lake's rock inlets. He pressed the purloined sword against Wen Chao's neck and warned all present. Nobody move. Move and I'll spill some of Wen Ganzi's blood. Stop moving! Wen Chao screeched heartbreakingly, as loud as he could. All of you, stop moving! Only then did the Wen disciples surrounding Lan Wangji and Jin Zizhuan stop their attacks. Core Melting Hand, don't think about moving either, Wei Wuxian barked. You all know what a nasty temper your family has. Your young master's at my mercy. He'd just need to bleed one drop of blood for everyone here to be as good as dead, and that includes you. Sure enough, Wen Zhuliu withdrew his hand. Seeing the situation was now under control, Wei Wuxian was about to say more, but suddenly he felt the ground shaking. Jiancheng, he cried in alarm, is it an earthquake? They were in an underground cave. If the earth began to shake and the mountain collapsed, the cave mouth might be blocked off and they might be buried alive. Either scenario was horrifying to consider. And yet Jiancheng shouted back, No! Even so, Wei Wuxian felt the ground shaking harder. The jolts made the blade of the sword bump Wen Chao's throat several times, prompting this horrible screeching. It's not that the ground is shaking, Jiancheng yelled at him. It's that thing under your feet. Wei Wuxian had noticed too. The tremors didn't come from the ground, but from the rock inlet he was landed on. And not only was it shaking, it was rising higher and higher, more and more of it breaking through the surface of the water. He finally realized that this wasn't an inlet. It was a massive creature that had been lurking submerged in the deep waters, and he was currently standing on its back. The rock inlet moved speedily towards the shore. The approach of the unknown Yao beast brought with it a formless dread. Only a handful of those present stood firm, among them Lan Wangji, Jin Zizhuan, Jiancheng, Wen Zhuliu, and a few others. The rest reeled backwards, scrambling away. But just as they thought the thing under the water was about to erupt from the lake, it stopped. Wei Wuxian didn't dare move carelessly, since jumping on its back had roused the Yao beast from its deep slumber. He held his ground, waiting quietly to see what would happen. Several red maple leaves, unusually vivid in color, floated leisurely past them on the surface of the pitch-black waters surrounding the rock inlet. Below those leaves, deep in the black depths, something gleamed like a pair of brass mirrors. That pair of brass mirrors grew bigger and bigger, closer and closer. Oh no, Wei Wuxian cried mentally and dragged Wen Chao back a couple of steps. There was a sudden tremor beneath his feet, and the rock inlet rose high into the air. A humongous, swarthy head broke through the water's leaf-speckled surface. With screams of alarm both high and low echoing around them, the Yao beast slowly twisted its neck and fixed its huge eyes on the two humans on its back. Its round head was very odd-looking, almost like a turtle, nearly a snake. The head made it seem more like a python, but its body, which was now mostly out of the water, was more like that of a... What? A giant tortoise? Wei Wuxian gaped. This was no ordinary tortoise. If this tortoise had crashed into the drill grounds of Lotus Pier, its shell alone could have filled the entire martial arts arena. 3 strong men couldn't have encircled its dark head. Ordinary tortoises didn't have such an incomparably long, serpentine neck that twisted like that of Jiao from its shell, nor a mouth that teemed with snaggled yellowing teeth and fangs. They also lacked 4 agile-looking feet, tipped with sharp claws. Wei Wuxian calmly met the gaze of that big pair of golden eyes. Their pupils contracted into slits, then flicked outward and thinned again, as if the beast was trying to focus and get a better look at what exactly was on his back. It seemed that this Yao beast had poor vision, like a snake. As long as they didn't move, it wouldn't be able to detect them. Suddenly, 2 streams of wet air spewed from the dark, empty nostrils of the Yao beast. The maple leaves that had been floating in the water just so happened to be stuck near its nose, and it was probably the tickling of those little leaves that had made it snort. Wei Wuxian remained still as a statue, but even this minor movement from the beast terrified Wen Chao. He knew the creature was bloodthirsty, so when it suddenly breathed out, he thought that it was about to go berserk. No longer caring that the sword was right at his neck, he struggled like crazy and shrieked at Wen Zhuliu standing on the shore. "Why aren't you coming to rescue me? Come save me now! What are you standing there for?" Jiancheng gritted his teeth and cursed. "Idiot!" One of the 2 strange things before the Yao beast's eyes suddenly started twisting like a worm and making ear-piercing sounds. This instantly upset the creature, and its snake-like head snapped backwards before springing forwards again. It bared its snaggled yellow-black fangs and lunged at its own back. Wei Wuxian hurled Wen Chao's sword. It shot like an arrow towards the beast's neck, aiming at the spot where a snake's heart would be. However, the head was armored in tough black scales. The blade impacted with a metallic clang, leaving a streak of sparks, as if it had just hit a steel plate, before it finally dropped into the water. The Yao beast seemed taken aback, its gigantic eyeballs rolling downwards to regard the long, slim object whose glow was still visible even as it sank deeper and deeper. Using this chance, Wei Wuxian grabbed Wen Chao and pushed off into the air, leaping to land on another rock inlet. This had better not be another giant tortoise, Wei Wuxian thought. "Watch your back!" Wei Wuxian suddenly heard Jiancheng shout. "Core Melting Hand is heading to her way!" Wei Wuxian whipped around and saw a large pair of hands coming silently at him. He reflexively struck out with a palm to counter Wen Zhuliu's attack, but felt an unusually forceful, dismal energy wash over him, as if something was about to be sucked out of his arm. He instinctively withdrew his hand, and Wen Zhuliu used the opportunity to grab Wen Chao and retreat back to shore. Wei Wuxian cursed under his breath and quietly jumped ashore as well. Every Wen clan disciple had their bows drawn, and they aimed at the Yao beast as they backed away. Arrows flew like rain, clinging and clanging as they struck the beast's black scales and shell. Sparks flew. While it looked like an intense battle, it was futile. Not a single arrow hit a vital point. All they managed to do was give the Yao beast a good scratch. The massive head swung back and forth. Even setting aside the scales, its skin was like black rock, full of bumps and hollows. If the arrow did hit the skin, it couldn't penetrate far. Wei Wuxian noticed that one of the Wen disciples next to him was gasping for breath as he knocked another arrow onto the bow. He pulled with all of his might, but still couldn't draw it fully. Unable to stand it any longer, Wei Wuxian wrestled the bow from him and kicked the disciple aside. There were 3 arrows left in the quiver, and he knocked all 3 at once, pulling the bow to full draw as he aimed. The bowstring creaked in his ear, but just as he was about to release it, an alarmed cry suddenly came from behind him. It was a truly panicked scream. When Wei Wuxian looked over, Wang Lingjiao was giving orders to 3 servants. 2 of them wrestled Mainmain and held her still, and the third was aiming the branding iron at her face. The tip of the iron was sizzling hot, already glowing red with heat. Wei Wuxian was some distance away, but the moment he saw this sight, he took action, changing his aim and releasing the bowstring. 3 arrows shot out at once and hit their 3 targets, who collapsed backwards without so much as a grunt. The bowstring hadn't even stopped quivering when Wang Lingjiao suddenly snatched up the branding iron that had fallen on the ground. She lunged forward and grasped Mainmain by the hair, aiming the rod at her face once more. Wang Lingjiao's cultivation was extremely low, but her movements were swift and venomous. If she succeeded, even if Mainmain didn't lose an eye, her looks would be ruined for life. At a dire time like this, when their lives were really in peril, that woman was still obsessed with hurting people. The other disciples were also knocking their arrows, completely focused on confronting the Yao beast. There was no one else near the 2 girls, and Wei Wuxian was out of arrows, with no time to grab more. He rushed over and struck heavily at the hand with which Wang Lingjiao grabbed Mainmain's hair, while simultaneously striking heavily at her heart. The strike landed hard and hit home. Blood gushed from Wang Jingyao's mouth as she went flying backwards. However, the tip of the branding iron had already been pressed onto Wei Wuxian's chest. He was assaulted by the stench of scorched cloth and flesh, and a horrifying smell of cooked meat. There was an excruciating pain near his heart, just below his collarbone. He gritted his teeth hard, but couldn't hold back a snarl that escaped his throat from the agonizing pain. He hadn't pulled his punches at all. His strike had sent Wang Lingjiao flying, spewing blood as she soared. She started wailing the moment she crashed into the ground. Jiancheng wound up and was about to chop Wang Lingjiao's head with his hand when Wen Chao started shrieking madly. "Jiao Jiao! Jiao Jiao! Quick, save Jiao Jiao!" Wen Juliu's brow wrinkled, but he made no comment. He swiftly leapt over, fought Jiancheng off, and returned with Wang Lingjiao dangling from one hand. He tossed her at Wen Chao's feet. Wang Lingjiao threw herself at Wen Chao's arms, yowling at the top of her lungs and coughing blood all the while. Jiancheng caught up with them and faced Wen Juliu. Wen Chao saw his frightening expression, both eyes bloodshot, and that all the other disciples were thrown into chaos, not to mention the fact that the enormous Yao beast had finally set its left front claw onto the lake's shore. Now Wen Chao finally felt fear. "Withdraw! Withdraw!" he cried out. "Withdraw immediately!" His subordinates had been struggling to hang on, not so patiently waiting for their grand leader to call for retreat. As soon as they heard the command, they mounted their swords and flew off. Wen Chao's sword had been thrown into the water by Wei Wuxian, so he snatched one from another and hopped on with Wang Lingjiao in his arms. He immediately shot off with a whoosh, disappearing without a trace. The Wen servants and disciples followed closely behind him. "Stop the fight," Jin Zizhuan barked. "Let's go." The group of disciples had no desire to stick around and fight this rock mountain of a beast. They dashed like mad back to the cave's opening, but when they arrived, they saw that the vines that they had used to climb down was coiled in the ground like a dead snake. Jin Zizhuan flew into a rage. "Shameless damn crooks! They cut the vine!" Without the vine, there was no way for them to climb up this steep earthen wall. The opening was over 100 meters above their heads, and the daylight that winked down from them blinded their eyes. The next moment, this light was extinguished by half, like a tiangu eating the moon. "They're blocking the hole!" someone exclaimed in alarm. As soon as he said so, the remaining half of the light was snuffed out. Trapped deep underground, the only light that remained came from the burning torches that illuminated the lost, confused, and speechless young faces. It was a good moment before Jin Zizhuan's cursing shattered the dead silence. "Those cheaters really went and did it." "It's okay if we can't get out," one of the boys mumbled. "My father and mother will come find me. When they hear about this, they'll definitely come search for us here." A scattered few agreed, but someone else immediately replied, voice trembling. "They still think that we're being educated in Xinjiang. Why would they come and look for us here? Besides, the Wens won't tell people the truth after they ran off. They definitely fabricate some kind of excuse. We'll have no choice but to stay down here. We can only stay in this underground cave, without food, in the company of this Yao beast." At that moment, Jiancheng slowly walked over, supporting Wei Wuxian as he went. They had just happened to catch the "without food" remark, and so Wei Wuxian had to add his commentary. "Jiancheng, I've got a chunk of cooked meat right here. You want it?" "Screw off. Not even that branding iron could kill you," Jiancheng berated. "Is this really the time for your nonsense? You have no idea how badly I want to sew your mouth shut." Lan Wangji's light-color eyes fell on them. Then his gaze moved to Mainmain. She was following Jiancheng and Wei Wuxian, looking at a loss. Her face was scrunched up and stained with tears, and her hands twisted her skirt as she sniffled, sobbed, and repeated uttered apologies. Wei Wuxian covered his ears and sighed. "Can you please stop crying? I'm the one who got burned, not you. Do you want me to comfort you? Why don't you comfort me instead, pretty please?" "All right, Jiancheng, that's enough of you hauling me around. It's not like I have a broken leg." The girls present all surrounded Mainmain and wept along with her. Withdrawing his gaze, Lan Wangji doubled back in the direction of the lake. "Lan Erganzi, where are you going?" Jiancheng asked. "The Yao beast is still guarding the lake." "I am returning to the lake," Lan Wangji said. "A way out lies there." When the others heard that there was a way out there, the weeping abruptly stopped. "A way out?" Wei Wuxian asked. "There are maple leaves in the water," Lan Wangji stated. End of part 1.